who's going to be coming on first. That's always what I wonder.
I'm trying to figure out how to.
I'm trying to pin a comment so that people can know who's who.
Oh, Tammy is the first.
Oh, passenger pigeon.
Ronny is here.
All right, Ronny is signing on, so we're gonna see him in a minute. Is virtual studio visit loop with Lou, and I'm Herb, and we're just waiting for Ronny Quevedo, who's a good friend of ours, and we're gonna be talking to him about every possible thing that you'd want to know about him. We think we hear you.
Hey, Ronny. Oh, the signal.
Can you hear me?
We can kind of hear you, but we can't see you. Oh, there you are. What's up, Ronny? Can you hear us?
Okay. Hey.
Oh, here you go. This is better.
Yeah, I can hear you. That's good.
All right, we're just stay with us. We're just like trying to
let me
figure out some tech issues. So this is the 5th week we've been doing this. Mm-hmm. No, 4th or 5th. I can't remember.
Time doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. But we've been doing this since the end of guest on the virtual studio visit loop, where we talk to artists that are in our community and check in on them. At first, this started as a way to find out what our friends were doing and make sure that everybody was okay. And we thought we would share that experience with everybody. And it's been great to hear from everybody. And, people live in different parts of the city, or they live, elsewhere across the country. And it's been just good to get updates from people and see how people are getting through this. Ronny.
Hey, Ronny.
Hey, guys. Is that better?
Just in time. Yeah, great. Yeah.
Okay.
I was running out of material. I was like trying to buy time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's only to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah. So how are you? Where are you?
I'm in the studio in the Bronx.
Yeah.
Not too far from where I live. So I've been pretty fortunate to kind of be in such close proximity to the studio. And luckily, the building hasn't closed, and it's really quiet around here, around the studio, because it's pretty industrial. So a lot of things are kind of at pause, which makes it relatively, I guess, easier to kind of get around without too much exposure, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're in the Bronx. This is the South Bronx. What's it like? I mean, what's it like just since the coronavirus hit and since the city's been shut down? Like, what are you noticing out there that's different than normal?
I mean, one thing that's pretty obvious are a lot of the disparities. Like where I live in the South Bronx, there are 3 housing projects near me, and this is something I've been kind of contending with for a long time and thinking about within my work. But also, it's like the median income around here is really low, and the community relies on so many different kind of social services on a day-to-day level that you can really see the result of it in kind of the infrastructure. There's a lot of single residency occupancies around here. There's a lot of clinics that offer kind of needle exchanges. it's it's a very much a mixed use, if I could even use
Mm,
that term. But the it really ranges. Sometimes there's a lot of people on the street, and sometimes it's quiet. But you can see that there's a lot of people that have kind of relied on the street culture to kind of keep the day moving along. So,
mm,
um, sometimes you would see a lot of people out and about, and sometimes not. So it really ranges.
mm.
Mm. Tammy commented on your hair, Ronnie. He
Yeah.
said he
Yeah,
says your
this
hair
is
got
my
real long.
this is what happens when you can't cut your hair for like 2 months, basically.
Yeah.
There's another 1 month to go.
I know,
So
probably another month before you can get a haircut from a professional.
Yeah, I mean it's fine for now. I mean I don't have to make any real public appearances, I guess,
Except for this. This is
except for this. But you
extremely public.
which is the really crazy part.
It's looking good, so don't worry.
Thanks. Yeah,
It's in good shape.
I think I might keep it going.
keep
I
it
think you
going.
should.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
looks good.
yeah.
So what about your day to day? I mean, personally,
Your
you know,
schedules and
yeah, how you
Yeah,
filling your time?
yeah. I mean, I've been spending time between being at my apartment, spending time with my girlfriend, and then coming to the studio, and moving back and forth between the two places,
Yeah,
um, and trying to find a routine,
yeah,
trying to stay on top of the things that can keep me focused, whether it's internally or just in the studio. Um, been running when I can,
mm,
and then going to the studio, um, working from home, for long periods of time. I mean, I don't think it's anything unusual for everyone else who's in quarantine, just trying to make a sense of a schedule so that it
mm,
feels, I guess, like we're living, you know.
yeah, yeah. That's a good way to put it.
try to keep it going.
We're not just trapped somewhere, but definitely trying to
Right.
stay in the news as much as possible, until, or maybe like check in once a day. That's about it.
Mm,
Mm. So trying to stay away from the news.
Yeah, for specific types of news, I guess.
Yeah,
Trying
yeah,
to really sift through what's really in the New York Times article. Sometimes it's like not
mm,
really um, pertinent information or information that will keep one motivated.
mm.
mm,
So it's just trying to be mindful of what we consume, what I consume anyway.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
How about you guys? Where are you again?
So, I mean, we're in a neighborhood that like you grew up coming around a lot. Flushing.
In
Flushing.
Flushing. Yeah.
Yeah. But kind of in the more suburban part. I think a lot of New Yorkers, when they think of Flushing, they think of like the really busy
Main Street
Main Street
area.
area, but we're
Yeah.
in like about
So
a
if I
15-minute
go
walk
visit you,
away
I would
from there.
take the train and
What's
then
that? Yeah,
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 train
train and
and
a
the
bus.
I
bus.
know
Yeah,
that.
that's ours.
Yeah, I know those
Yeah,
areas.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but yeah, Lou and I were just reading your Bomb magazine interview,
Oh, cool.
a little bit where you talk about your dad and how he was like a referee
Referee. Yeah.
in those the like leagues that happen in the park.
Yeah, he was a
Yeah.
referee and a lot for an association of referees, and then
Mm,
they'd be hired by different amateur leagues to referee on weekends. So it was like Saturday and Sunday we would go from the Bronx. It was almost like a
wow.
2 hour train ride. It was like because you have a Ghent
Wow.
and then take the 7, and on the weekends it was always a local train.
Yeah.
There was no
Yeah.
express.
Mm.
And I had to take all, you know. Luckily, it's above ground, so I got to see all of Queens that way. But
Yeah.
yeah, we would go and he would referee, and I would, when he's refereeing, I would just kind of go play around the park with friends and play soccer,
Mm,
just like check out the park. There's just like so much
mm,
to do around there.
yeah.
But yeah, it was like almost every weekend since, I don't know, maybe since I was like 5 up until like 15.
Wow,
Wow.
10
Yeah,
years
like 10 years.
every
Yeah.
weekend.
Going back, we would do a lot of that. Yeah. And even
Huh.
when he got injured and he couldn't like referee anymore, we would still go. It was like in a sense, a social club for him. So I would
Right.
just
Mm.
be on the, you know, around him. And then when he wasn't looking, I would just be like, I'm gonna go now. And go buy some ice cream or something. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you make friends when like growing up in this way? Like, do you have friends while he was refereeing?
Friends from that time?
Yeah. No, friends
Um,
from like going with him and like 'cause other people may have also have kids and like
yeah.
little.
I not really. It was kind of hard to stay in touch, because everybody who
Mm.
went to the park lived in Queens. So it was
Oh,
Mm,
it
so.
was like close, for them it was
mm,
like their backyard park. But for
yeah.
us,
Mm,
it was like coming from the Bronx. So it was like
mm-hmm,
kind of hard to keep that friendship in a way because we didn't go to the same
mm-hmm.
schools or, just living in a different borough is kind of hard, especially when you're like 11 or 12. You're not really getting on the train to go meet up with friends.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you're that age, you're just a kid. Everybody's your friend, right?
Mm.
So long as you
Mm-hmm.
can be on their team.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I want to kind of return to sports later on, but because it's like a big part of your work, and I wore
Yeah.
this
I
shirt,
like your
special
shirt.
for you.
Where's that
Yeah.
from?
Well, this is let me just stand up so you can maybe see the rest of it. But this is like a bit like a really popular anime
Okay.
um series called
Slam
Slam Dunk
dunk.
that actually Lou introduced me to. It was big in Asia when Lou was a kid.
It's how I grow up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, you want to talk about?
it's all around
It's all
basketball.
about basketball.
It's
Yeah.
all about basketball, and
Oh,
it
I
was
gotta look
like
that up.
Yeah.
yeah, I think it was like around when Jordan was playing in 90s and 2000, and
Yeah.
this anime had I think it had they create those characters kind of reflecting the teams around that
Mhm.
time.
Right.
Everyone has like their own personality, like the red hair guy.
Yeah.
He's like the
Oh, like Dennis Rodman. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
mhm,
Yeah.
Oh,
So
he's
because it
Dennis
was like,
the series.
yeah, yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah. Um, so you're in your studio now.
Yeah.
Can you just like do a pan and let us see what's going on there?
mhm.
Yeah,
We just
sure.
want to,
Uh,
yeah.
I can kind of
We're living vicariously through your
let me see if I can switch this over.
studio life. Oh, cool.
Okay. So what I see on my screen is what you guys see, right? It's not like if
Yes.
Mhm.
flip it over, it's
Yep.
not gonna help.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're looking at a drawing right now.
Yeah, I mean the stuff in the
Oh,
studio has been really slow.
yeah.
Despite being able to come, I have to be honest, it's been kind of hard to focus, and
Mm,
Mhm.
stay kind of um, motivated sometimes or energized. So
mm,
Mhm.
this is actually a piece from like almost 4 or 5 years ago that I never really finished. And
mm.
so kind of going back to some things that have been in my archives or in like my milk crates.
Yeah.
Um, this is a piece that's also kind of work in progress. This is all work in progress. This is a process of like melting wax
Mm,
onto stencil and then melting the residue of that onto paper.
mm.
Uh, so they're all unique pieces.
Yeah.
And there's this kind of larger piece looking at this wax paper that I've been using that's coming from fabric stores that's used a lot for pattern making.
Mm.
And so I'll try to get a little bit closer. So all these lines here actually applied one by melting strips of paper onto the surface.
That's beautiful.
Thanks. So I've been working on this. Uh,
Can you
it's
stay on this? Can you just stay on this for a moment?
Yeah,
I want to
sure.
just ask you about it.
Yeah,
Uh, First of all, when did you start this piece?
probably a year, 2 years ago. The process of
Wow.
the works are really they vary, and it's also
Mm,
Mhm.
led me to kind of think about the origin of an image.
mm,
So this kind of process, there's probably another drawing with a similar color tone and kind of use of gray somewhere else
Mhm.
done.
mm,
And so when I transfer material onto another, I've left with this. substrate that I can still use. So,
I
and then
see.
kind of keep going back to the sheets that I have available.
So how did this one start? Like because it looks just, from a first glance, it looks quite different than some other work that I
Yeah.
know of yours, so what led into this piece?
Mm-hmm.
So for this one, was starting to play around with melting two sheets of paper onto one another. So this is actually, I'll get a little bit closer so you might be able to see. These are actually two sheets of paper
Oh,
bound
okay.
to each other, and they're both are started as white paper, and then what's
Mm,
gray part is actually carbon paper melted onto it.
mm,
So um, I would put the carbon paper on top of one sheet, melt that on, and then sandwich these two sheets of paper together and melt them onto each other. So
mm,
use and create one whole image.
I see.
Yeah.
So is there a lot of sort of accidental mark making that happens, or are you
Precise
pretty,
about,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, some of it is accidental. Some of this, it's more like a color field that I'm hoping to sustain. And I think
Mm,
that's really more my kind of intention. And so I'm kind of happy with the way this one turned out. There are some accidental moments of like, leaving the heat on for too long, and so it creates certain areas that are more melted, I guess, than others or more fused.
Mm.
mm.
Yeah.
And so you said it's not finished yet, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes,
How
you
do
know,
you,
it,
how,
it's a
how,
process. It's hard to
mm,
say when things are completed, but I've been really enjoying kind of each iteration of these lines, going through and kind of
Mm,
spending time with them to see what it amounts to. Uh,
mm,
mm,
yeah, I mean, there are other pieces that I've done in the past that are similar to this, and
mm,
so sometimes I think about um, having a piece next to it that kind of completes it somehow.
mm,
Yeah.
oh, so it's always like it's different, it's a different every time of how you feel it's finished.
Yeah, I think sometimes when there's like something to juxtapose it, to provide the
Mm-hmm.
context or at least a sense of the the point of entry, then I'll just leave it there. Um,
mm,
and sometimes they're standalone. And I mean, I feel like this one is really autonomous. I'm really appreciating the way that every gesture that I apply to it, it kind of holds its own space. So it's been kind of
right.
nice
Do
Mm.
that way. Yeah.
you have a title for this?
No, not yet.
Do
Wow.
you
Yeah.
title things usually after they're done, or how does the titling work with your practice? Because
Uh,
language is really, by the title of your other pieces, language seems to play a really important part in
yeah.
infusing something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
guiding through.
yeah,
When in doubt, just quote somebody else who's smarter than you, right? So
yeah.
I've been reading a lot of Edward Glissant. I got one of his new books, which is actually essays of his first studies in college or right after college. And so I've been kind of getting a sense a lot of his idea of relation. Um,
Mhm.
I think someone was asking me about how I fuse papers, but
Yeah,
Right,
how do you feel?
Blanca. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I mean, like there's this material. I wish I could show you. Let me see if I can. Trying to find something. Um, Basically, it's like a double-sided adhesive that's
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
activated by heat.
Oh yeah, I know that stuff. That mounting.
Yeah,
It looks kind of like wax paper.
yeah, and actually Tammy
Yeah.
put it. So it's this Viva film that basically I can take one substrate and then melt it onto another substrate with this
Mm.
film in between. So there's a lot of kind of heat involved.
Yeah, that's great. I feel like it's finished. but you'll probably have to struggle through that for another few months.
Yeah. Maybe I'm in denial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else do you have going on in the
Mm-hmm.
studio? We saw a lot of other work on the walls.
Yeah, this is a piece that I finished a few days before we all went into quarantine.
Hmm.
I've been looking at patterns, clothing patterns a lot, and thinking about how to fracture them and join them together again. So this is made up of one sheet of pattern paper, and then underneath it are other lines and um, pieces of gold leaf. Let me see if I can find something which is a little bit more obvious. Can't really tell if you guys can see what I see.
We can, yeah.
Yeah, so these are all little strips of paper cut into quarter inch, and then reapplied to create this final kind of disjunctured, fractured, unstable. And yeah.
It's very time-consuming work, like labor-intensive.
Then there's these pieces that I'm also working on that are material. Say it again?
Oh, no, just keep going. We had a question, but I think there were some reception issues. Just keep going.
Oh, okay. And so what I've been doing in the past, I've been working with muslin a lot as my substrate for some of the pieces related to fabric and garmentry and garments. And so now I've been thinking about applying the muslin onto these panels. And so these are new studies for how the wax paper and the muslin can actually be applied to panels so that it can hold a different kind of space, essentially tile them to make even larger works. So you can see kind of here the kind of texture of the fabric, and then let me see, can't even see my pic. This here is carbon paper, and then up here is wax, the wax paper. Yeah. So that's very much new work in progress kind of material.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there an image in there, or?
Yeah, or it's abstract.
I'm working towards an image. It's based on this older piece that I've done based on images of the moon. And right now I'm trying to build up this kind of center area by focusing on the outside. So hopefully I'll keep applying more opacity to this layer so that the center can start popping out.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's like a painting process, but material.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the function of the yeah, it's interesting. It's like very much a printing process, but I never think of it as such, or maybe it's so kind of immediate to me that it feels more like drawing sometimes, or very much like painting.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the like symbolism in your work, or just in general, kind of how you what kind of source material you're working with, and how you try to interpret that?
Yeah, let me just switch around so I can not be on my feet. Give me 1 second. What was the question? I'm sorry. Was it
just about symbolism and your references? We were talking about sports earlier, but also I feel like there's a lot of music in your work, or some of the patterning that I see in your work reminds me of music.
Yeah.
Just where does all that come from?
It's, I think I've been a bit more conscious and probably more honest with myself that the imagery, or at least the symbolism, is coming from thinking of my parents and being more mindful of their own influence on me, not just as like a person, but as a thinker, and thinking a lot about like their own histories as people, right? So my dad as a player and a referee, and my mother as a seamstress. And so these are all like very much labor intensive occupations, and how I can kind of use that into the work so that every iteration of a mark on the page or on the painting is indicative of that labor, right? So for my dad, the more kind of apparent iconography or symbolism is the one related to sports. So I've been thinking about gymnasium floors, all the marks on a playing ground, all that kind of stuff. And then that kind of slowly got me more interested in the use of cartography and thinking about things from above. And so from that, I led a lot into thinking about how we delineate borders, how we delineate boundaries, not just within the game, but also beyond. So like now it's even more expensive. I've been thinking about constellations, thinking about things beyond our physical reach. And so that's where I think the piece that's in gray with a lot of the lines coming through, that's the kind of vantage point that I've been thinking about, you know, stepping away from the earth and stepping away from terrestrial ground and into celestial space. So that's where I've been kind of stepping towards when it comes to the imagery that reads as mapping. But that also kind of feeding into the other stuff related to the history of garment or like textiles, and thinking about garment workers, and my mom's history as a seamstress. And so again, all the material that like I use in a fabric store. So like the idea of using wax paper that you use for pattern making or patterns themselves, even the act of ironing and processing things through heat rather than through direct application. You know, so these are kind of gestures that I'm taking from that that profession and that like lineage, so that the work keeps going back to that space that I'm trying to represent. It starts off biographical, but I'm really thinking about like these were where my parents' history as migrants is a big part of where the work is, and it's not just a one generation shift, right? So it's like tech leading way back into it, or the role of sports going the hero myth, you know. That was a long answer.
That was a great answer.
Yeah, it's great.
Thanks.
So, I forgot what I was going to ask you. I had a great question, but I just can't remember what it was. So with actually, could you talk a little bit about your parents in terms of the immigration story? I don't know if they were the ones that immigrated, or I think you were born in Ecuador, right? So
yeah, I was
like,
born
what was that story of coming to America?
Yeah, I was born in Ecuador. My siblings were, we're all born. My immediate family was born in Ecuador. And I came here when I was really young. I was about a year old. And, you know, we came for reasons that, you know, we just didn't have certain medical access in did here. And so we had to come here to address a medical issue. And then it just so happened that it kind of trickled into this thing of like staying here momentarily, and that momentarily kept turning into this thing. We'll probably go back, you know, we'll go back eventually.
Yeah.
So this connection between Ecuador and New York, one of like, we're always going to go back. But it was also complicated because, you know, as an immigrant, you really don't have access to everything, and because all the information, you don't know the flexibility you might actually have. You don't know, like, it's so unstable, you don't know what's going to happen. So, yeah, we ended up staying and really adjusted to being here, especially us. And then the professions that my parents took up were ones based on what they could immediately get, um, as a seamstress or as a referee or as a factory worker.
Right. And nowadays, like we're seeing with the coronavirus, like a lot of the immigrant communities in New York affected, like especially
Yeah,
in the Bronx and in the Queen, in certain parts of Queens.
yeah.
Um, like what do I don't know what goes through your mind when you hear about what's happening in these immigrant communities.
It's really it's tough because it's things that people have been speaking up for such a long time. I think it's something that a lot of artists of color are very conscious of, and people who are attuned to day-to-day life. They have known of these issues and know the discrepancies and the inequality, and um, they're they were stark before, and they're just like much more apparent now. Like if you think about like, it's been really hard hit. It's where a lot of people who work at these, who are the essential workers live, because
Yeah,
if the Amazon order, it's not being fulfilled, by someone who lives, on the Upper West Side or something. It's being fulfilled by people who live in the outer boroughs. And so there's a lot of things that surface, and it's, um, you know, things that a lot of us have been aware of, and, have been wanting to, um, address. And now it's coming to light of all those inequalities that, we've been speaking up about, and we're really seeing the challenges.
right. Do you think your work is going to change, after quote things get back to normal? How do you think this moment that we're living through will impact you and your work?
Yeah, it's interesting just because, coming into the studio, there's it's a really a transition I've been fortunate enough to make, where it's like coming to this daily practice, you know, and the things that come to mind are, they feel self-referential, even though they've been synthesized through a lot of the things that one experiences.
Yeah,
Um, and I'm sure everyone's work will change. I'm sure my work will change. One of the issues, not issues, but some of the difficulty of coming into the space and feeling creative, or feeling like doing something that feels productive is difficult, because uh, the motivation of it is drawn from a place that feels like it doesn't exist anymore. And so
yeah,
the
right.
grieving, so like the grieving, we're all going through a grieving. And I think as an artist, it's like, it's something that we synthesize and continues to synthesize, and what makes our work layered, um,
Mm-hmm.
and so at the moment, I know that directly it's been tough to maintain a steady, um, kind of consciousness. I don't know if that's really to kind of put together, but
Yeah,
like sometimes to go back, yeah, there's a certain plan that one needs to enact to go back to an idea and finish an object or
mm-hmm.
finish a sculpture or paint. And then it it's kind of influenced by a lot of emotional things, and right now it's just kind of difficult to maintain that focus. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's like we were just talking about the things we find comfort in as we're going through this. For
Yeah.
some people it's cooking. Uh, for some people it's like rewatching sports, like
Mm-hmm.
legendary games from before. And I think for some people it is like sort of focusing on something that you can manage, like something that you can complete or something. And I think that's why cooking for a
Yeah.
lot of people is very very nice right now. What are you doing in terms of food and like and eating? Like, are you cooking? Are
I'm
you like ordering out a lot?
yeah, I mean
what's your game plan with that?
the exercise helps a bit.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Getting really tired of washing dishes and then cooking and same dishes and washing the same.
Yeah, I know. It's yeah.
Then
That's the loop we've been in.
you're like, well, I bought this pot like 3 years ago. Should I change it? Am I? A lot of that all of a sudden become like really introspective because you
Yeah.
kind of have your own face for a little bit longer. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but
Question for
yeah, one thing that
Ronnie.
say what?
There's a question for you. What are you watching these days? I think it
What am I
also
watching?
adds on to this question.
Oh yeah, it kind of relates to her. I've been watching a lot of sports documentaries. I've been trying to go back
Mm,
to things that were, I guess, motivating or inspiring, and that you don't really have to
yeah,
question too much about.
yeah.
It's
What's a good one? What's a good sports documentary that you've seen recently?
the Michael Jordan one is actually pretty good. The
Is
one,
it?
Oh.
I can't bring myself to watch that because I hated him growing up, but
yeah, they're kind of they did such a good job editing and turning that into a narrative that you kind of start
mm.
the hating, right? But
Yeah,
we're also like 20, 30 years removed from the 94,
sure.
95 season. so
Yeah.
Mm.
so it's a little bit easier. Um, we're just wiser now, so we don't hold on to the hate anymore.
Yeah. I'm not. I
and
still hold a grudge against him. Yeah.
yeah, but he puts a lot under the bus. It's kind of entertaining.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been watching that. My friend Heido, so I was watching it.
Right.
Um, what else? There was this documentary on Bing Russell, who started this independent in Portland.
Mm. Mm.
He's Kurt Russell's dad, and so
Oh, really?
interesting
Oh.
documentary. The story, he's like an actor based in LA, and then he was like a huge Yankees fan. He was like the Yankees bat boy. Then he decides to buy a baseball
Mm.
team in Portland. Um,
Mm.
Mhm.
what else? I've been trying to get back to a lot of more like art movies or art films. Uh,
Mm.
just it doesn't feel like nostalgia. I think it's more like going back to the things that kept you unabashedly like interested
Yeah.
in objects and wanting to be part of like being an artist. So
Mm.
helpful to kind of go back to those things.
Right. Yeah. Going back to your earlier, what you were talking about earlier, uh, it's like for me, I don't really want to think about what the future world is going to be like, because there's so many questions and there's a lot of anxiety and
Uncertainty.
yeah, we don't know what kind of world we're going to get back into. So, it's helpful now to just kind of focus on the things that are just in your immediate proximity and the things that are very familiar to us, like the music, the movies, the books or whatever.
Yeah,
Because like the rest of it, uh, it's just like makes you upset and every day like you check the news and you check like the numbers keep pouring in and it's just too much.
yeah, yeah, and I think it's kind of about what we consume, like
Mm,
what we read, what we allow to take up our time and space.
yeah.
But one thing, silver lining that I think my girlfriend has really helped me um, kind of remodel or like not reimagine, but like as as a way of looking at things that, you know, these voices that have represented the outliers or the marginalized cultures, like all these ideas of wanting to have healthcare, wanting universal income, are very, you know, like now they're at the forefront of the situation, right? And so the terms and things that we've been fighting for, and I know that she's been fighting for, are like what can be the solution for a lot of these things, you know? So it's like it feels like, oh, you're just talking on the margins, right? So it's like a lot of the concerns of of like underrepresented people are really what's going to help form a solution moving forward. And so hopefully there's some involved in that, and the things that we kind of have been doing for such a long time. It's just really, you know, the physical component is really difficult to manifest. So
yeah.
We got questions for Ronny. Are you teaching at all, Ronny? This is from
Mary Valverde asks.
Oh, I was doing like a studio critique. I mean, a court critic visit like 3 times a semester at Yale this past semester, and our last visits had to be in online. So luckily, I had met all before. You know, it would have been our first interaction ever would have been online. So, and yeah, it's been nice to teach. It's been helpful to kind of exchange strategies or exchange ideas of like how to keep one motivated and keep one and concentrate on certain things. Yeah.
And there's another one from Sasa. What are some key books or readings that have or are inspiring you?
Right now, I'm reading this book by Edgar Garcia. It's called Signs of America, and it's looking at indigenous artifacts and languages. I'm probably going to do a bad of the synopsis, but this is what I'm getting from it so far.
Okay, that's good. Yeah.
He's thinking about these artifacts, especially the key, which is like a counting system made out of threaded knot from the, and how that plays out in contemporary forms of sign and signage. It's a bit dense because there's so many references to so many different things. But it again, it goes to show like there's so many existing languages and codes that are as sophisticated as we think our life is right now. You know, it's like it's as multi-layered back then and abstract that it is now. So there's this kind of really nice feeling of continuation or lineage with the artifacts he's talking about, or like the pictographs of older cultures. So yeah, I've been reading that.
Can you say the title again and the author?
It's Edgar Garcia. And
Edgar Garcia, okay.
It's either Sign of America or Signs of America.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, this has been great. A lot of people have actually tuned in, so
yeah,
really happy that, you know, people are like, we've gotten a chance to check in
the whole
with you.
room is
yeah.
Thank you, Ronny.
Yeah, thanks, Ronny. Really appreciate it. And
that's what it is. The Sign of the Americas.
Signs of the Americas.
That's what it's called.
Yeah, the Americans. Ronny is dope.
Ronny is dope. Yeah, that's true.
So
and
help me
and accurate.
Do the research.
Heather is here. Maya. Wow. Ronny, a lot of fans.
Yeah. Hopefully we can all, you know, get together, you know, in person in real life, like soon. All of us, everybody in this room, we
Thanks
should
everybody
have a
for
reunion.
joining in.
Yeah, for real. All right, Ronnie, thanks so much. Thanks so much for all the
Yeah.
people
Let
who
me
joined.
ask.
Oh wait, hold
Listen.
on. There's
Can
one more
you
question
speak
here.
Italian?
Cool.
Ronnie, can you speak
Thank you
Italian?
guys
Like,
for that. Yeah, it's definitely an inside joke.
okay.
Cool.
Okay.
All right,
Thanks,
Ronnie.
guys.
Everyone.
Stay safe.
Thank you, Ronnie. Bye.
See you soon,
You too.
okay? Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.